In the Lab, a Texans podcast that takes a different look at things. Drew Dougherty and John Harris have their lab coats and goggles on, and the Bunsen burners burning. Here's Drew.
Well, we're finally here. It's the week of the NFL Draft. It's where the guy waving his hands, John Harris, makes, I don't want to say you make your money, but you make some hay, you get a lot of notoriety. It's kind of your favorite time of the year, your time to shine. And it's our time to chit chat a little bit about the draft here on In the Lab. But first things first, how you been, man?
I've been okay. I've not gone in my cave yet.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've been in it at various times throughout this whole thing. So it's a process I enjoy. I enjoy all of it. Senior Bowl. I missed going to pro days this year because they didn't allow media to be in the building at times, and so that kind of stunk. Because I love the pro day process. I know there's some scouts like pro day. This guy can't play. That guy can't play. Why am I going to pro day to see him? But I love that process. I love everything about it. So it all culminates this week, and finally, here's the only fear that I have, Drew, is the Texans make a pick, and I'm like, I got 500 prospects. I don't have that guy on my list. I don't have that guy on my list. Where is he on my list? Because if I have a guy rated too low, I'll explain why I have him rated too low. If I have him rated high, that's great. Hey, we got somebody.
Sure.
Last year, Ross was, I had him in the top 20, I think, and he went number 40. And I still think he's got a good future ahead of him. He's got to make some changes. I think this defensive scheme will help him. But probably the best one was Justin Reed. Justin had it at number 44. And then he goes at 68. And I remember I got the text from you actually that night. And you were like, it's Justin Reed. And I was like, wait, he hasn't been taken yet? And I went and looked, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I saw he's at number 44 on my board. And he's been more than 44, man. He has been really, really good. So it's fun. So looking forward to it, and hope you are as well. We're going to get a chance to do some draft Zooms together live, which would be kind of cool.
I want to talk now about one or two of our favorite Houston Texans draft moments. And
all right, cool.
For me, there's a clear delineation. So I joined the team in August of 2009, so I missed that draft. So the first draft I covered was 2010. And so in 10, 11, 12, and 13, I was in Houston, and we would be in the press box for the most of the draft, and then we have the press conferences and whatnot. But then starting in 14, I got to go to the actual NFL draft. That year it was in New York. It was the last year it had been in New York. And then 15 and 16, it was in Chicago, which, I mean, I still think Chicago has done the best job with the draft. Yeah. That's my personal favorite. Philadelphia was really, really cool. I liked that in 17. And 18, I did not go because we didn't have a first round pick.
Yeah.
That was in Dallas, and I think that would probably be like whatever. I've been there, done that. 19 was fun. It was Nashville. It was Titus Howard, but he wasn't at the draft. So I didn't go last year because of COVID, not going this year because there's no first rounder. But Houston being back, doing that, I think one of the most fun times I had was actually 12. And that was a year, they're coming off of the playoff run, and the Texans were Super Bowl contenders. They thought, and everyone thought, hey, you're getting Matt Schaub back to go with this defense. You got a running game. They've got a chance. They, came up short, but they started out like a house of fire, 11-1 before what, we all know happened. They kind of faltered down the stretch. But that offseason, there was so much optimism, and it was like, just take the best guy available. There are some needs, but can't go wrong. And you can say that about every year, but you were a pretty stacked team, you thought. And I remember I'd done all the research, and I thought, well, it looks like this guy Merciless, who led the nation in sacks, led the nation in forced fumbles, he could be around at that time. That'd be fun. And there were a few other guys that you looked at. And then when they actually took him, it was pretty exciting because, he had skins on the wall. He'd done it at a high level. I got to meet him and his family at the airport the next morning and kind of, document their journey. I shook his hand when he came out of the holding area and put the microphone on him and said, welcome to Houston, da, 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 da. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. And, he's turned out to be a pretty darn good Houston Texan. He's had a nice career, but it was fun being a part of that at the outset and seeing how that all went down. That was my favorite pre-going to the draft moment. What's been your favorite, Houston Texans wise draft moment since you joined the team?
Well, my favorite happened 6 years before I joined the team.
Right.
And I say favorite now.
I was skirting around the Dwayne Brown.
Tell it.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'll tell it because
I know.
It really has taught me a great story. And so for people that, before I came to the Texans, I was at a competing radio station in town. We had just started a station called 1560, and we had a lot of luminaries. We had Lance Zierlein, who's now at NFL.com. He's still over there. John Granado was over there. Sean Pendergast was my first co-host. And Lance and I had been doing a draft for a long, long time together. And I was always envious. I'll admit it. I was envious the fact that he got to do the draft live and talk about it live. And I was just like, man. So in 2007, I joined the station and was like, 2008, we're going to do the draft together. So I am geeked. So we go to this place called Nick's Place. We're doing it there. We're watching everything unfold in the 2008 draft, and we're just riffing off one another. And Sean's driving, and me and Lance are just, rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. So it's coming up time for the Texans to pick, and I want to say they traded down, if I remember correctly. So they moved. I think they moved back. They moved back. Yeah. So now it's amping up a little bit more. Oh, yeah, that's right. That was for Joe Flacco. So I'm amped up, like, what's going to happen? And Lance looks at me and he goes, and he shows me his phone. And it says it's going to be Dwayne Brown. I look at him like, no, because I had seen Dwayne Tribal. And I was impressed physically, no question. But as I watched him, I'm like, God, I can't, this guy's not a first rounder. Like, I can't believe this. The pick goes up. It's Dwayne. But I lose my ever-loving you-know-what. And because I could, I was, young and dumb and stupid. And I don't know, I think I was 35 at the time. Anyways, 36. I don't know who's counting. Anyways, I just lose it. And I lost it for another couple of days. And it was just, and I remember making the comment. I do remember this distinctly. I was like, Dwayne Brown might go to 5 Pro Bowls for all I know, but I just don't see a guy that can really step in and play right away, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, I think he's gone to 5 Pro Bowls. So what makes the story better, I guess, is, for me at least, is a couple of years later, as Dwayne is starting to evolve into a player, Lance, messing with me, went to Dwayne Brown at a practice and said, hey, my buddy doesn't like you very much, talking about me. And so I'm like, oh, thanks, Lance. And so Dwayne kind of looks at him like, what do you mean? So they start talking. And so Dwayne eventually, so Lance tells a story because essentially after we drafted Dwayne, I had a whole booklet of DVDs. At this time, he had MP3 or MP4s to watch. Uh-huh. So I pull out my DVDs and I find Virginia Tech game. I pop it in. I'd already watched it, but I'm like, I got to see this. So I'm watching the game. I'm getting frustrated watching him. And so Lance tells him, like, yeah, during the draft broadcast, he's like pulling up your game. He goes, what game did he have? And he goes, well, I think it was the Boston College game. And Dwayne's like, oh, that was a bad one for me. So I felt sort of validated in some sense. Well, now, since Lance did that, I was like, okay, I got to go talk to Dwayne. So I see him. It's one of the night practices. It's a beautiful night. I walk up to Dwayne, and Dwayne at this time is like 330. He is jacked. And I'm like,
not a fat 330,
no,
I mean, all muscle.
No.
He's an athletic specimen.
Dude,
yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. And so I said, hey, Dwayne, I said, and he had a smile on his face. And I said, hey, I'm John Harris from 1560. And all of a sudden the smile turned to a scowl. And he looks at me and he goes, heard you don't like me very much. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's about to strangle me. And all of a sudden I see this sly smile on his face. And I was like, yeah, there was a time when I didn't, but you know what? I really like you right now. And from that point forward, it's funny because I learned a lesson that day. First of all, don't lose your you-know-what on the radio. But I've told Dwayne this, and over the years, Dwayne and I got to be, we got to be friends, and we've talked about that on the air. Like, we've talked about that moment on the air, and he's heard it, which I'm like, oh, man. Because what I learned was, A, when you have that sort of athletic ability, and B, you want it. You want it. And C, you've got the desire to go get it. You will. Yeah. And that's what Dwayne taught me was athletic traits matter, but so does grit, guile, and absolute determination. Because if you put all that together, And it's funny because I use that same sort of thought process with DK Metcalf. Like everybody's saying, oh, DK's going to fall. DK's going to fall. And I'm like, look, well, hold on. He's got athletic skills through the roof. And this dude wants it. He wants to play football. His dad was a pro. This is what he absolutely desires to be. This isn't about money for him. This is about him being the best receiver ever. Those things are going to come together and make him a great player. Ironically, he goes to Seattle where Dwayne is now. Mm-hmm. And Dwayne and I have talked about that over the years. And like I said, he's told me he's heard it and he kind of laughs at it. And I hope one day when he does retire, he can come back to Houston and when we can celebrate him and I could give him one last, dap up and say I was wrong. And I told him numerous times, I think I see it. Probably the fourth thing goes with it is, all those things. But the fourth thing, and probably, and I don't know why it's my favorite, but it's like, if you miss, you miss, say it. Say you're wrong. And I was wrong. I was so dead wrong.
He's turned out to be so good.
So good.
Basically a decade with the Texans. He's the greatest offensive lineman in team history. Still pumping it out at a high level in Seattle. That guy, wow. He's still
there was one small appendix to that story. So I think, was it 15 or 16? It was 15. It was 15 when he got hurt.
Yep.
So in that game against Jacksonville, he comes out of the locker room and he's on crutches. And I see him after I've done my interview. It's before the media gets in there. And I see him on crutches. And my heart just bled for him, man. I was just like, oh, man. I know he wants to be there. I know he wants to be in this playoff game. And I just was like, I walked up to him. I didn't know what to say. And I just was like, man, I'm so sorry, man. Love you, bro. And I just walked away. That's all I could say to him. And I think he kind of looked at me like, wait, did he just say, like, love you, bro? And I was like, yeah, I said it, and he just kind of smiled and kind of waved me off. I didn't know what to say to him. And I just felt so bad for him. But he's a great player here, and he's been a great player and taught me a lot of lessons. So that's my favorite. Now that I can tell that story, 13 years later. At the time, over the next couple of years, as he's turning into a great player, it made me look like somewhat of a fool in some sense. But hopefully,
we've all been fools.
The best person about it was Dwayne Brown, and that also tells you a story too. That somebody can say something bad about you, but you can prove them otherwise and prove them wrong, and that's always a good feeling. So hopefully, he feels good that he proved me wrong.
Indeed. So that's our kind of look back at some of the fun stuff, because you're going to hear about who might be available for the Texans at 67. There's lots of guys. There's lots of options. Going to be fun to see what Nick Caserio does, moving down, moving up, maybe. I don't know. I would think if it's a move up, it's for next year's draft and maybe capitalizing on some stuff there. But I'm ready. It's exciting. Draft week is here. I know the Texans don't have the first or the second, but I'm still pumped. It's going to be another crop of 8 faces to add to the 78 that have come in this offseason. So I'm pumped. You?
Yeah, man, I'm ready just to kind of see where everybody ends up. And I think about this a lot during draft time, Drew. These young players are going through the paces. And I always, I see a player and I'm looking at my Harris 100 right now. And I'm like, where does Jalen Waddle go? Where does he end up? He's a Houston kid. He's from Episcopal. He loves Houston, loved the Texans growing up.
Yeah.
Where does he end up? And then kind of envisioning him in that jersey and then envisioning him in that offense. And then it comes to fruition and you're like, whoa, I didn't see that one at all. And there's some that you're like, yeah, like Brian Cushing, like for weeks and months, I was Cushing the Texans. Like, I think we all knew it was coming. So you kind of foresaw that. And then it came to fruition and you're like, yeah, A to B. But then there are some you like don't see coming. And you're like, yo, I did not see that happening at all. And that's what kind of makes it fun. It's like unwrapping all the different gifts, 259 of them for NFL teams coming up on Thursday.
Indeed. You'll be at it. We're going to be live, you and I, Thursday night, as well as Friday night and Saturday morning, because we'll have pre-draft shows. It's going to be a good time. And then you'll be on the radio all the way through the draft. So get the throat lozenges, get the honey, consult with Dr. Vandermeer, bootleg doctor, as we like to call him. He's got a bootleg MD.
Yes.
And we'll have a good time, man. It's here, and thank goodness it is. I'll see you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.